Hello everyone, welcome to another amazing video. Today we are going to look into toxicology in clinical trial. We have seen that in preclinical phase we require toxicological data so that we can start phase 1 of the clinical trial and test our drug. But do we exactly know what exactly is toxicology and how this toxicology is beneficial in terms of clinical trials, in terms of medicine, in terms of drug development? So make sure you watch this video till the end because it is very important for you to understand toxicology and we are going to cover all the aspects of it. Without further ado, let's start. So first and foremost, let us understand the fundamentals. So what exactly is toxicology? So toxicology is a scientific discipline which has overlapping areas of biology, chemistry, pharmacology, and medicine. And this particular scientific discipline involves the study of adverse effect of chemical substances on living organism. So any chemical substance that may include the drug and what are the adverse effects associated with that on the living organism, and the practice of diagnosing and treating the exposure of various toxins and toxicants of that particular chemical agent or the drug is called as toxicology. So it is very important for you to understand that toxicology is not only a chemical field but it's also a biological, pharmacological and a medical field. Okay, and it basically focus on the adverse events of the chemical substances on the living organism and understand the exposure. In toxicology, it is very important to understand the relationship between the dose and its effect. So what particular dose of a drug or a toxin you are giving and what particular effect it is having on the exposed organism, and that is of high significance in terms of studying toxicology. Other factors which are significant in toxicology includes the dosage, the duration of the exposure, whether it is acute or chronic, what is the route of exposure, which species are we studying toxicology on, the age, the sex, the gender, the environment. So these all aspects together would help you understand the toxicity of a particular chemical or a drug. So that is regarding toxicology. Now it is very important for you to understand that how exactly this toxicology is measured. So toxicology is measured through a various aspects, and commonly it is used to describe the toxic doses according to the degree of effect it has on the on the organism and the population. And specifically, there are some laws or organizational usage that we have created to understand or define toxicology. So we define toxicology on these factors, which is the first factor you must have heard while doing your bachelor's or master, which is LD50. LD50 is lethal dose 50, which is the median lethal dose, a dose that is required to kill 50% of the exposed population. So at what concentration the half of the population is eliminated? Okay, so that is LD50. Okay, next is the no observed effect level, which is the highest dose known to show the effect, that is adverse effect. Again, we have NOEL, which is no observed adverse effect level, that is the highest dose known to show to have the adverse effect. Okay, and next, finally, we have the PEL, which is permissible exposure limit, which is the highest concentration permitted under the OSHA regulation of the US. Okay, so whenever it comes to measuring toxicity, is very important for you to understand LD50, NOEL, NOAEL, and PEL terms. Okay, so this is regarding toxicity measurement. Now, in terms of clinical trial, in terms of drug development and medicine, we have seen a branch of toxicology, which is clinical toxicology. So it is very important to understand what exactly is clinical toxicology. So clinical toxicology involves research, prevention, and treatment of diseases that are caused by chemicals, drugs, and toxins. Okay, this particular special attention is paid to the level of chemical exposure, to the effect of the exposure that can have in the people, okay, the real people. And clinical toxicology is also useful when dealing with people who are poisoned or overdose. Okay, so people who take overdose or who are poisoned by a certain medication or chemical. So it is very important for you to understand the clinical effects of it and how it is beneficial for the medical professional and first responder, because to get and collect that data, it will very be critical for the doctors to determine which particular route of treatment to go. Okay, so that is clinical toxicology. Now, when it comes to application of this clinical toxicology, then clinical toxicologists develop new methods, okay, new methods to determine the harmful effect of the chemicals and drug, as well as at what dosage these effects are caused. They study the relationship between the effect and the dosage and the concentration, so that it will be very important for you to understand the effect of the toxin or the chemicals and how they can be used safely. Because not all toxins need to have side effects. Some toxins, when used at a specific concentration, would definitely have some health benefits. So that is the area of clinical toxicology. Now finally coming to toxicology in clinical trial. Now in terms of clinical trial, where toxicology comes into picture. So in clinical trial, toxicology refers to study of potential adverse effect in new drug on human health. So as I've said that in preclinical testing, we use toxicology, but in phase 1 clinical trial, it is very important for you to understand toxicology, and they definitely conduct studies where they determine if there are any potential adverse effect in of a new drug on human health. So in phase 1, as you know, there are a very few people, and this toxicology helps us to understand, to limit the exposure if a particular drug is toxic in nature. So for new drug, during the clinical development phase, toxicology studies are conducted to assess the safety of the drug, obviously, and to identify if there are any potential toxic effect that may occur at therapeutic doses. So in order to determine a particular therapeutic dose, in order to use a particular chemical or a drug agent to cure a particular disease, it is very important to understand whether that concentration is not causing any toxic effect. And these particular studies are conducted in 2 stages. First is preclinical toxicity stages in terms of the cell culture, animal culture, and next is clinical toxicology stages where it is done in humans. Okay, so toxicology is not restricted to preclinical phase, but it is also carried out in clinical phase also. Now in preclinical phase, the toxicology studies are conducted in animals, and the aim of this is to understand the potential toxic effect of the drug and whether it is in relation to a particular organ before the drug is testing in human. Because if it leads to organ failure, even in the healthy humans in phase 1 trial, it is definitely a medical disaster. Okay, and this preclinical toxicological studies help us to understand to have a safe dosage to be administered in phase 1 studies or in the dose determination studies in human clinical trials. Okay, so preclinical data is very important to understand at what concentration we see toxicity in animals, and depending upon that data, we contemplate what concentration of the drug is to be started with in clinical trial and what therapeutic doses we see toxicological effect. Now, in terms of clinical toxicology, so this is an area where the toxicology is studied in humans to evaluate the safety and tolerability of the drug. Okay, so you might have heard this particular term, that is MTD, which is maximum tolerated dose, which means that at what concentration a particular drug starts to have adverse effect. Okay, and it is very important for you to understand this, because if a particular patient takes a particular drug in higher concentration or incorrect concentration, then you need to understand that at what concentration the drug becomes toxic. Okay, so that you can determine the accurate dose to treat a particular therapeutic condition. Okay, these studies of clinical toxicology typically involve a small number of healthy volunteers or patients within the target disease condition, and based on the result, it is used to determine the MTD of the drug and to understand whether it is having any significant adverse effect. So this was the clinical toxicity or toxicology in terms of clinical trial. So I hope you understood a lot of things about toxicology. Please make sure you like this video so that we can bring you such amazing video, and make sure you like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you.